Starting. There's that sweet voice that always tells me we have a webinar starting. Greetings to our audience, which is entering slowly. I'm Mike Blinder. I'm publisher of E&P Magazine, and greetings to those who are watching the recording of this, another one of the many sponsored webinars we do at E&P when we bring in our marketing partners who help support our mission to support local journalism. Moreover, they share their knowledge and what they've learned and what they can do to help all of us find that sustainable business model we surely need in today's ever-changing news media ecosystem. So I do want to thank very, very much Workbook CRM for sponsoring this broadcast. Before we get into the actual content, I'd like to remind you we're on Zoom. Zoom has many ways to communicate with us. Not many, but a few. They got this thing called raise your hand. They got a Q&A button. We don't want those. We have a chat button in Zoom we'd like you to use. I have programmed the chat so everybody can chat to everybody. And my hope is during this webinar that you will default your chat if you have a question, comment, you agree, disagree, what have you, with what's being discussed today. Please go to the bottom and don't let it be at default host and panelist. Switch it to everyone. So it's more of a dialogue for all. And we'd be honored to share it with you. To test this, to make sure everybody knows what local gas prices are here. What I was going to do is this. This is what we're currently paying in Tennessee, where I live. I live in Nashville. $4.06 is the current average. It's a bit higher here. So I'm going to go to chat right now. And I'm going to go in there and default and change it to everyone and put in the current gas price I saw this morning when I was taking a ride. So I'm putting now into my gas prices. I hope you don't mind me doing this. $4.53. There it is from Nashville, and I did it to everyone. Anybody on the chat now, if you want to test it, get us what you pay for your last gallon of gas. I know that's depressing, but it's a good way for everyone to see what the gas prices are out there. So all of you out can let us know. Now, I want to welcome our guest today, John Cheney, CEO of Workbook CRM, Ken Campbell, the Workbook's Business Development Director, who are going to be joining us today for our dialogue. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to see you. Great to see you.
And John, you're there too, right?
Nice to meet you. Yeah, all good.
All good, all good. So let's get to work. My first question is, publishers today are facing an enormous pressure from every direction. Third-party cookies are disappearing, audience behavior is becoming harder to track, revenue models continue evolving, and both readers and advertisers increasingly expect more personalized experiences across every platform. At the same time, many publishers are still struggling with fragmented customer data, disconnected systems, and CRM platforms that were never fully designed for the complexity of modern media organizations. And I think we all know the result is that many sales and audience teams are spending more time managing systems than actually doing what they need to do, which is building relationships and growing that necessary revenue. Today's conversation is about AI-driven CRM. It's hard for us to even discuss a topic at E&P that doesn't have those two letters, but is AI changing the CRM equation? And today we're going to explore how publishers are using smarter automation, predictive insights, and cleaner first-party data to better understand audiences, improve operational efficiency, and create stronger long-term customer value across subscriptions, advertising, events, and other revenue streams. So before we dive into today's challenges, I'd like to, if I may, ask John, if you would, before we get into everything, give us a quick overview of Workbook CRM, the role you're seeing CRM play in today's publishing organizations. John, if you don't mind.
Happy to. Thanks, Mike. So Workbooks is a CRM vendor which really specializes in a couple of markets. We are a mid-market vendor, so typically we work with organizations employing somewhere between 25 people at the low end and several thousand at the high end. And we really specialize in creating value. So how do we take a piece of technology, but really use that to shape business value for our clients? And particularly in media and publishing, which has had an awful lot of change in the last few years, we're spending a lot of time helping our clients streamline their sales and marketing operations. So they're spending less time on the technology and more time selling, more time marketing, more time growing their top line revenues. So that's very much our focus, is helping with revenue growth, streamlining business process, and really making it easier for organizations to run their businesses and become more successful.
Ken, what about media industry challenges that you're seeing as the guy that interfaces with the customers that use workbooks, sir?
Yeah, so here's the thing, Mike. So my challenge and charge here with workbooks, as you know, I'm an old newspaper dog from back in the day, and 30 plus years around this industry. So I've sort of seen it all, seen the technological transition, the last 3 decades. So really, my job here with workbooks is to really introduce, the solution that John just outlined to, the media and publishing industry in the United States. There's a lot of players in this market, but at the end of the day, as both, really, I'm gonna speak, Mike, if you're okay with this, really as a user of CRM, because you and I've got some similar background running sales teams. We need that good data, right? We need sales reps to like and not absolutely loathe using the CRM. Gives pipeline visibility, and then all of the complexity that you sort of set up in your intro there is where the CRM is evolving into really sort of a central truth for publishers, that brings in everything, from subscribers to first party data to sales pipeline management, all of it. So my job is really to go out and show that workbooks is a solution that is extremely adaptable to the publishing industry. But from my perspective, one of the most important things about it is friendly for the user. Because again, as you and I both know, a lot of times with CRMs, they can do a lot of things, but sometimes that level of complexity drives a learning curve that is like, an arc to the moon. It's months and months and months. And in a world where AI is changing things, and the discussions are the speed of everything, I guess, is happening in weeks, days and weeks, not months and years. Man, we don't have time for reps to take 6 months to learn a CRM and to give us control of all of our company data.
And the last thing you need is friction in a sales process or friction in the audience process. We all agree that.
Bingo.
And workbooks has a long history, not ages, but of working, of building and evolving. But the AI is new, correct? This is a new facet. And how is that playing a role in workbooks evolution? And how are you keeping on top of that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Ken's right that the rate of change in AI is very high, but how are we using it? So we're doing a couple of things. So the first thing is that we built agentic AI into the platforms. So the idea behind that is that things that you were doing manually before, you can now use AI to automate for your process. So to bring that to life, a nice example would be the research agent we have in our AI platform, which as a lead arrives at your website and a lead pops into your CRM system, the first thing it can do is look at who the user is, who the lead is, visit their website, analyze what that business does, and decide whether that's a good prospect for your advertising sales. So if you're an advertiser that focuses on manufacturing business, for example, then you'd want to know whether that organization meets your ideal customer profile. Historically, AI, you had to do that manually before AI. Sales rep had to visit the website, read through the content, decide if it was a good fit. AI can do that for you. So at the core of what we're trying to do is we're trying to build agentic AI into CRM that makes it quicker and easier for people to get their jobs done.
And and if I may editorialize, I guess I can because I'm an editor of.
It's your webinar, Mike. You can do what you want.
Your
I can
show,
do whatever the
buddy.
hell I want. I mean, the fear of AI drives me a little crazy. And there is fear everywhere in all facets, not just within this industry where there's the battle going on. But the question is, to me, when I think of AI, I think of efficiency, right? I mean, how can I do something more efficiently where I'm in control, but I'm able to use my abilities with less time constraints. And correct me if I'm wrong, that's the brilliance of what you guys have done. I mean, when we first met, we discussed having you guys come on board as a marketing partner, and we explored and did the deep dive into your tools. It is amazing how you've made it just you've I keep using that word, but reduce the friction. And John, is that just the beginning? Are we going to see this evolve more and more and more over time within your platform? I mean, that's my question.
Yeah, yeah, you are. So I guess from our perspective, we operate a little differently to most CRM vendors in the sense that we work directly with our customers. Most of our big competitors, Salesforce and HubSpot, they have a channel that does this stuff. But because we work directly with our customers, what we try and understand is how do we reduce friction, to use your language, in the business process. That means we need to understand what your business process is. So where we've started our AI journey is been working with our clients to understand what things can we automate they're already doing. Now, the nice thing about that is you can quite quickly tell whether it works because you know what the outcome was you were expecting. What I'm trying to do for you is you not have to do the work, right? I'm trying to do it on your behalf, make it quicker and easier. So the first phase of AI really, I think, is about productivity. And if I'm honest, that's probably the least risky piece of it because it is quite simple to implement. It is quite simple to understand whether it's creating value or not. So from that perspective, I think it's a great opportunity now for organizations to be building more productive sales and marketing teams. As
All
we
right.
look forward,
I'm going to
there's
say, and
analytics and stuff like that.
we're still at 50,000 feet right now.
Yeah.
We're going to get down to the darn runway soon and talk about that. But let's I love the way we set this up, and we, obviously have a kind of an agenda here to go over. So let's go into what's broken, okay? I mean, this is what I think is fascinating because it's broken, CRMs. And that hasn't changed. I mean, Ken, you and I, as you say, we're old sales war horses, right? And I was the guy that was, though if you guys want to Google me, but I'm the guy that put one of the first newspapers online. Then the Newspaper Association of America said, "Oh, this guy's like a digital pioneer." And I started working with newspapers all over the world, not just teaching them what digital was, but how to sell it. So I was a sales guy working with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of titles over 20 years. And I went into these environments and I met with sales teams and I used to train up sales managers, and nobody liked CRMs. That was 20 some odd years ago. And not that there's still a lot of things broken in today's CRM world, regardless of how efficient the system is. Do you agree, sir? What are the biggest frustrations and efficiencies publishers are struggling with when it comes to CRM, right, in today's world? I want your opinion on that.
Well, I'll give you my 2 cents here, Mike, because I think a big part of the complexity, and you see it a little bit with, obviously this the spaghetti that's connecting all those parts of publishers' businesses. I see it, and again, without getting too far into the weeds, because like you said, I think at this point we're sort of talking, at maybe down to about 30,000 feet. But the business has obviously changed a lot for publishers as the digital transformation has happened, over the past couple decades, right? So what that's driven is a lot of data where publishers have been trying to navigate. Well, okay, we're getting all this data. What do we do with it? How do we provide value to our readers? How do we provide value to our online consumers of content? How do we provide value to our advertisers who are trying to reach those eyeballs, whether it's in a printed publication or whether it's online or in an email or in a newsletter, right? So as that volume of information is increased, everybody's trying to come up with a system to get their arms around it. But that has driven, again, what you sort of see on screen here, which is that crazy level of complexity. The CRMs, I think, have responded by trying to really be all things to all people. But in doing that, again, I think it's created a level of complexity that very, very quickly gets beyond the capabilities of publishers to understand. So what ends up happening, and this is what I've seen, and maybe it's what you've seen as well, running sales teams, the the organization will grab onto whatever part of the CRM that they feel like is actionable and that they can get the sales reps or their teams to use. And then a lot of it falls by the wayside. And that's where, again, John's vision for workbooks is to make our AI as real world actionable actionable as possible for the teams.
John, I'm looking at this slide and it makes me nervous. It shows confusion to it. It's a lot of broken parts here. Why don't you expand on this, John?
Yeah, I guess we sell a lot into media and publishing, so we know this space really well. But we also have the benefit of working with other types of companies. And I guess if I was going to generalize, because this sector's been through such amount of change in the last 10 or 15 years compared to many other industries, you've gone from paper to digital and then multiple types of digital. You've got multiple brands. So inherently, the complexity is often higher in this sector, and therefore the requirements are higher. But I would also say a few things. With the media and publishing firms that we've worked with, there has been historically a tendency to focus the investment on the brand building and the audience building, and kind of the internal CRM platforms, the marketing generation for the brand tends to play second fiddle. And so we've often been into firms where they've got really poor CRMs because they're either legacy, or even if they've got modern ones, they're not really working for the business because they've not had the investment that they need. So for us, Workbooks is about trying to simplify the back office CRM and make it really work in what is quite a complicated environment with multiple brands and having to track, are you selling to agencies or selling directly to organizations, and if you've got to pay ad partners, all that kind of stuff. So what we've done with Workbooks is taken our very flexible platform, but simplified it for this sector without all of the complications. And that hopefully helps organizations really create value quickly.
I don't know, for the last I don't know how many years, we've been hearing cookies are going to go away, third-party cookies. And it's funny how our industry goes through different headlines and changes, and especially as I watch it now from my vantage point at E&P, where we have an editorial team and we're curating industry news. So for a long time, it was all about first party data. That was it. Build it now or you're dead. And every convention I went to or everything was about how important. So let me ask a follow-up. Why are these problems even become more serious as everyone is realizing today? You must own your data. Is that still the case? Maybe should I throw this at Ken or John or both of you?
Well, I'll take the first point and then Ken can chime in.
Go ahead.
And it kind of goes back to my point I was trying to make earlier, that for media and publishing, first party data is absolutely important, right? And key to business success. But if you talk to any of my other customers, every single one, they would say the most important information for them is details about their customers and prospects. And there isn't the same weight in media and publishing historically on building out that universe of customers and prospects to sell to. So I think one of the points I think is, as it becomes more difficult to build audiences without the cookies that you had before, there needs to be more emphasis on understanding who are the people that are actually going to spend money with you, who are the advertisers, the sponsors that are going to spend money, and giving at least the same amount of weight to building up that data set. So I think that's part of the sort of cultural shift that media and publishing firms need to make, because it used to be just throw more salespeople at the problem, right? You get more people on the phones,
yep.
You make more dials, you try and close more deals. There isn't that focus on how do I run a sales funnel and marketing funnel that delivers outcomes and is repeatable. And I think that's an important shift. As first party data becomes more difficult, more emphasis should be on your customers, the people that spend money with you, and how you segment those audiences too.
Ken, I just had Gordon Burrell on my vodcast about 2 episodes ago.
I'm a huge Gordon fan.
Well, sometimes it pisses me off, but that's it. But Gordon was the whole podcast because, those of you who don't know Gordon doesn't study audience, he studies advertisers. That's all he does. And he's got a network where they ask big and small businesses, agencies up and down the line. I always say just 2 questions, but then subdivided. What are you buying? What do you plan to buy in media? But then it's always subdivided. And how are he was all about this, and this is why I love what John just said, because it tees it up. He kept saying, we're going after the wrong people. That's the problem with sales teams. They're dialing, they're knocking on the same doors. That's not where the revenue opportunities are.
Right.
And you're see, because he keeps saying local advertising is growing, but we ain't getting in front of the right faces. John, Ken, do you agree with that? And is that how
Well,
CRM can help you?
yeah, no, I do, and it's actually a great question, Mike, because I'm going to sort of play off of what John said and sort of take that into the advertising sales world. So as part of my background is digital sales, uh, and a ton of third party data. Okay, my former life, I ran digital teams, sold on the vendor side as well. But one thing that's been extremely eye-opening for me, especially as I've dove much deeper into the magazine publishing world, the business-to-business publishing world, the niche publishing industry, sort of gotten beyond my comfort zone of the newspaper world. What I've realized is you've got to be able to provide that value and connect your salespeople to to the advertisers that are actually going to spend good money and stick with you. You've got to be able to sort of carve up those audiences and sort of serve them to your advertisers on really on a silver platter. So the old school approach of, well, we've got 6 salespeople, we just need to put 12 on the street, and that'll bring in the revenue. That's not really where we are. And the other thing that we know from Gordon's research is that the competitive environment for publishers has changed pretty dramatically just in the last 3 or 4 years. So we've gone from a handful of digital marketing agencies to literally thousands. I mean, I know you've seen the same chart that he's shown at many conferences, that if you're a publisher in this country, 30 years ago when I was running the streets with hair and abs, I was chasing down my competitors with the local newspaper, the local cable outfit. Now these publishers are competing with thousands and thousands and thousands of digital agencies. So what it's done is it's made their first party data even more valuable, because the one thing a digital agency cannot provide is a first party audience, right? They're selling all that third party audience extension piece. So if the publisher wants to make themselves more important, more valuable to the reader, and then obviously ultimately to the revenue generating side on the advertising, they've got to be able to deliver that audience. So that's where, again, what John was talking about, being able to handle that first party data, bring that into CRM, work that, and then pair that with the pipeline. All right, now we've got a mix that sales reps can go out and bang out some sales.
And Mike,
go ahead,
sorry,
John,
Mike,
please.
if I can just give you a nice example of that, well, one of our customers. So here in Europe, one of our customers is Scottish TV. So it's the national TV station for Scotland. So historically, their business was selling to advertising agencies, right? Because when you did TV advertising, it was typically quite expensive. Now you can buy a TV slot for $5,000, particularly on some of the digital streaming platforms. So they've been looking to sell much more to smaller clients. And what's really driven their success has been using CRM to understand those smaller prospects that perhaps they never knew about before. And that's been critical for them. So it's a great example of how they've used their data and they've marketed that audience. They've engaged with that audience over the phone. They build up a network of much smaller companies spending $5,000 or $10,000 rather than $100,000 on advertising.
Great minds, because that was where I was going to lead the question to. In today's world, also, demand-driven business, agency-related, big advertiser-related, regional advertiser-related, is gone in a lot of respects. They're buying around traditional media in a various different ways. The biggest opportunity, and Gordon screams this as well, is small businesses. They need the advice. They need the counsel. They need the not someone's pitching media, but a marketing expert that represents all media. So with all these little businesses not having a really strong data of who am I calling on, what are they worth, and what can they spend, it's mind-boggling. So let's switch into the AI world now, because we're getting close to half our journey. Chat room we got Michael's been asking some questions. A lot of CRM companies claim to have a platform built for the vertical or industries they sell to. Let's get into AI. I mean, if we can, and let me ask the critical question. When people hear AI powered CRM, what does that actually mean in practical terms for the publishers who are on this thing live and for the hundreds who will be watching this recording and reading the write up? Who should I throw that to first? John, do you want to field that one?
Yeah, happy to. So there are two things today that we're delivering to our customers. The first one is agentic. So inside workbooks, you can build agents that will do the job that humans used to do, and they can do it at scale, right? So that ICP analysis, for example, or even simple stuff like a sales guy's got an opportunity and he needs to know which customer reference to use or what's the next stage. AI can do that. It can provide a sales coach for the sales rep, saying on that call, you didn't answer these questions, you might have explored these areas, you scored 5 out of 10. And if you're a sales leader, bringing new people in, you can provide coaching, training, all that kind of stuff. So that's one aspect, agentic AI in the platform. The other aspect, which a lot of our customers are excited about, is the ability to build applications on top of CRM. So one of the challenges with CRM historically was it did what it did, right? If you wanted a workflow that didn't quite fit, you couldn't do it, or you spent a load of money getting the software vendor to add it into the platform so that you could. But we can now build applications on workbooks in literally days. So workflows you couldn't do before, we can build it directly in CRM. So agentic AI and applications on top of CRM are where we're going.
All right. So give me some real world examples of how publishers are using AI-driven CRM to improve both revenue and audience engagement, both topics we want to discuss today. Is that Ken or is that still you, John? Ken, do you want to field that?
Well, I can. Here's where I can speak to it because obviously I've been involved, just as a salesperson and user. I'm obviously using our CRM to manage my pipeline. So I've been sort of involved in the kind of the beta testing of everything that John just talked about there in terms of the agents that we're building. What I'm seeing with our AI. So again, I've in my previous life I've been a power user of all of the CRMs. Like I said, going back to Act and Zoho, go back 30 years, right? So and then obviously Salesforce and HubSpot in recent years with some previous digital marketing companies. So I've seen these platforms, got to use them extensively. What I'm seeing with ours is what I would just call practical use. So with some of those platforms, what I'm seeing is that they are leveraging the AI at scale. So what happens when you go into your opportunities and your organizations, you get a lot of AI generated data. And looking at it as a salesperson, what am I trying to do practically as a salesperson? I'm trying to get from A to B. A is the proposal and B is the deal, right? Whatever that is, digital campaign, print ad, whatever. So I need tools that help me in that cause. So if I'm a new salesperson, I don't necessarily need a bunch of gobbledygook. What I need is sales coaching. I need my meeting to be recorded. I need some coaching on how did I do. I need coaching on next steps. If I'm maybe myself, maybe I'm more of a seasoned salesperson, maybe that's not really what I need. I need some deeper analysis into the opportunity itself, what maybe I'm missing. So again, what John's describing is what I would call just a more nimble and practical use of AI within the platform. So that's again, I think everything about what we do as an organization and as a CRM is really built around, again, practical use and just people being able to learn and use these things quickly. And where automation comes in, I think that's where John made the point about, if we can automate some things that, that again would have been 20 minutes worth of manual data entry, then we're absolutely going to do that. But again, we also got to be careful not to make it terribly complicated. I do want to. I noticed Michael had a good question in the chat. Mike, you okay if I address that one right now?
By all
I got
means. Take over, sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
so Michael asked a really, really good question. And, as I came into the CRM space, I sort of had some expectations in terms of the market that I was coming into. So the way I tell people is, we got the billion-dollar CRMs over here on the left, the Salesforce and the HubSpots of the world, global entities. And then sort of to my right, I've got what Michael asked about, which is CRMs that are specific to a vertical. So there's obviously, some of our competitors in the US are publishing specific CRMs. Their bones are for publishing. And so he's asking the question, what's really important and where does our strength lie? So when I first took this job, guys, I really thought the fact that we weren't completely exclusive to publishing, I had that a little chip on my shoulder that was a weakness. I figured out in the last few months that is not a weakness. The fact that the platform that John's company's built over the last 20 years can service many industries, the flexibility is a strength, not a weakness. I'll give you an easy, and it's a stupid, simple example, but I had a publisher who's using one of those publishing specific CRMs came to me and said, I have a really simple problem and they can't fix it and it's driving me crazy. And I said, okay, what you got? And they said, well, when you were in publishing, did you give comp copies to your big advertisers? And I was like, well, yeah, of course. Somebody's spending $5,000 a month with me. I'm going to send them a free copy. They don't have to subscribe. They're like, there's no way to set that up in our CRM. And so I took it to our development team and they literally laughed. They went, yeah, it's not a problem. We build that in 5 minutes. So yeah, again, flexibility, strength, not a weakness, Michael. So good question.
All right. So, John, let me throw it over to you because now this is one of my favorite sections. Let's talk about the publishers again. And one of their face, and I face every day, is managing multiple revenue streams simultaneously. I mean, it's mind-boggling how the different, just all the pipelines and everything that's feeding into me. How does today's modern CRM help unify all those relationships, subscriptions, advertising, events, sponsorships, on and on and on? John, why don't you field that one for me, if you don't mind, sir?
Yeah, okay. So back to Ken's point to some degree, the fact that most modern CRMs and I'd even put the big guys in the same buckets have the ability to integrate data from lots of sources is key. It's very difficult to know your customers if you don't have all of the data in one place, and even more difficult to make AI valuable if it can't access the data that it needs. So I think one of the benefits of a platform like Workbooks is we can bring the data in from all of the different places, either natively, because things like attending events, for example, we have an events module, or we're bringing it in from third-party systems. That's key to this journey, because if we break it down to the basics, now how do you grow revenues in a business, right? There's only two ways of doing that. Well, three, but the most common two ways of growing revenues are you find new logos to sell to, or you sell more to your current customers. It's very difficult to sell more to your current customers if you don't have the data in the middle for everyone to access. So, for example, in our world, we had a number of our customers that came onto the platform because previously they had multiple brands and each of the sales teams are all trying to sell to the same customers. And those customers get annoyed, right? Because they get calls from different reps from the same customer, all trying to sell them advertising space. And we solved that by bringing all the data into one place. So they've got one single view of their customer. So that single customer view is key. And it's things like, have they not bought from you for 6 months? So in that example, with that particular prospect, they wanted some rules. If this customer hasn't bought anything from us in 6 months, any of the sales teams can go and prospect to them. If they bought something in the last 3 months, only the team that sold them something can go back. It's very difficult to build those business rules if the data isn't in the middle. And the key to that is integrating it so you can get it all in one place. But I agree, that single customer view is key.
Yeah, and John, I think what I would add to that is again from maybe a process procedure standpoint. One of the things I've learned about workbooks that's really, really important. Mike, if you remember that first slide that we started out with all the spaghetti, gobble, trying to connect all those parts of the business. So how do you untangle that? right? Part of the detangling of that mess right there is the CRM and actually having people in your organization run towards it and not away from it. So that's really important, number one. But then number two, I think a big part of it, and John sort of touching on it at a high level, I'll come down a little bit lower. The importance of being able to integrate with other applications is really, really important. And one of the things I've learned about workbooks is we are extremely friendly, and we play really, really well with other applications because look, at the end of the day, it's all about use of CRM, right? So we want it to solve the problems, but we don't need to have it solve problems that are already solved, or that aren't a problem, right? So if an organization, say for example, uses a project management platform that they really like, they've used it for years, they want us because we can do some of all of these other things to help the business. Well, then that's where those integrations come in. So if we can play well with some other applications that the teams are comfortable with, you start to unravel that spaghetti a lot quicker. And again, and without that learning curve that goes trails off into the months because you're not having to relearn systems that really aren't broken. So it is sort of the old, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. There's a little bit of that aspect to how we're structured.
Well, you brought up two separate things there that are very, very important. Let's first stay at the publisher level. Let me ask you at the sales level. I as a boss, as a senior person, I want to manage all those pipelines. That's CRM's function. Do I have that correct? That is the final benefit to senior management with a CRM. They can just see everything quickly and easily on it. And you suggest that they're looking at this daily, right? I mean,
Yep.
because that's what I do. I'm always looking daily at what we're doing so I can fix. I mean, what was the old, oh, I forgot the famous,
If you can't measure it, you can't fix it.
yeah, exactly. But I forgot who said it. Oh, it was,
I can't remember either. But if
yeah,
you can't,
I think, if you can't measure it, because everybody thought if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. That's not the
yeah,
quote. It's if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. And that to me is everything, right?
Yep.
But the second thing is sales. Ken, why is it that salespeople avoid CRMs? I mean, how many times have I heard,
Yeah.
don't you trust me? Do you think I'm a child? You
Yeah.
don't think, no, I'm doing this takes too much of my day. This takes too much of my time. I don't need this. This is hard to use.
Yeah.
This is too much. I mean, and there are some CRMs that are mind-bogglingly hard. I mean, I've had salespeople tell me they are forced to go back to their desk to input to the CRM because they can't do it on the fly, if you see
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, Mike, you're right in my wheelhouse here. And again, what I have seen, I'll come at this sort of two different ways for you. So the two rabbit holes that will again have that sales rep want to run away from the CRM and not into it. I see two major problems. The first thing is the the just the user experience of the CRM itself. And the way I've described this to people, and I get a lot of nodding when I have this conversation with people, is I'll ask sales reps, how often do you go in your CRM and you just freaking get lost? Like, what tab am I on? Am I on the wrong? Am I in the marketing tab? Am I in sales? Am I inputting in the right place? Like, if the CRM is so complicated that you just get lost all the time, that's salespeople run away from that. And I've used CRMs like that. So if the level of complexity is too high and the navigation is not fairly intuitive, then you got a major problem. What I joke with people about workbooks is that am I perfect in my execution on it a few months in? No, but I can tell you this: I learned this thing in days and weeks, not months and years. So so that part of it's really important. And then the second part, and this might be even bigger, Mike, you would think this would be the simplest, but really it's not. The number of keystrokes is probably the wrong word, but actions I maybe is the better characterization. How many actions does it take to start with a new prospect and get a sales opportunity that your manager can see? In a lot of the CRMs, that can be 6 to 8 actions create the person, create the organization, and then you got to touch it, and then you got to connect, and then you got to build the opportunity, and then you got to rank it and touch it and clip it, and it's again, I hear that from salespeople all the time. It's too I just want to build my pipeline, and so with ours, with some of the automation that we've got in there, I can like it's basically two actions where I can start with a you know a business card. Boom, I got a business card. I can go right from here. One action builds me the person in the organization. I do a conversion, and now I got my opportunity. So in my mind, it's two actions get me to where I need to go. So that piece for me, that's what is, again, that's where our learning curve, our implementation timelines are literally crushing everybody else in the industry.
Mike, just to add to that, and I like this quote, and it kind of ties in. So, if a CRM is implemented purely for giving leadership visibility of pipeline, it'll only be partly successful. It needs to make salespeople's lives easier, and I don't mean easier in inputting the data. I mean it needs to make their job quicker and easier. So, a good example is if you have marketing joined up to CRM, so the sales team have leads arrive, which salespeople don't want leads to arrive on their desk automatically, and those leads are well qualified before they then have to pick them up and run with them. That's valued. And if you explain to salespeople that if you don't tell us whether this lead's a good one, marketing is just going to continue to give us bad ones. And what we want is better quality leads. So tell us why that lead wasn't good. Was it the wrong ICP? Was the customer in the wrong state? Whatever the problem was, right? And feed it back. And when you look at CRM as not just a sales tool, but you look at it as a funnel tool with marketing at the top all the way through, then sales become part of the solution for creating better marketing qualified leads. And that's when it really begins to work, right? When you get a virtuous circle of marketing delivering leads and sales helping to refine them so they're better quality, it goes back around that journey. If it's just a tool to beat salespeople around the head, then you'd only ever get limited adoption.
I think that's there's where you sleep better at night. I mean, isn't that the goal? I mean, just you want as a manager, and maybe I'm just simplifying things too much here. You want something that basically gives me that chance to see the whole picture. And then, as the great business consultant of the early 20th century, Peter Drucker said, and then apply the pressure where I need to, apply the fix. And Ken, if I may be so bold, in sales, if I'm a sales manager, I use a CRM because then I can say in each of my when I was a sales manager, I had weekly coaching meetings. And they were always Fridays because you couldn't swing a cat, this in the old days, between noon and 6 on a Friday and find a decision maker. So they were starting at noon on Fridays, and the guy who was closest to goal got to do his meeting first and go home. And the guy that was least to goal had to wait for me. Do you see what I'm saying? I was that.
I've never heard of that approach, but I like it.
That's how I did it. And then I used to have, and I always required CRMs, even to the point where I'd say, write it down on a cocktail napkin. And then I could go over their strengths and weaknesses. And because I'm not saying enough new business, correct me if I'm wrong, I got a guy that's a little shy of that original, contact, doesn't like rejection. If I have a person who's making a lot of calls, but not a lot of closes, do I have a closing problem? Do I have a listening problem? You see what I'm saying? Again, back to Peter Drucker, right? I mean, and I love that quote because it's all about if I can't measure it. I mean, doesn't it? And maybe I'm getting too ethereal here, guys, and boring the hell out of our audience, but isn't that all part of it? John, maybe you disagree with me. You don't say I want to lose weight. You say I'm going to lose 5 pounds a week. I'm going to lose
exactly. Yeah, I mean, you absolutely got to be able to measure it, and I think it's also making the organization accountable, not just sales. So, if there's a problem in marketing, let's make marketing accountable for it. If there's a problem in production, we're not getting the adverts produced in time and in the right places, let's make them accountable. So everyone's got visibility of those metrics.
I could not agree more. So let's bring this thing home. We always, these webinars go between 45 and an hour. We're at 45. The chat room's been light. Thank you, Michael. If there's anything we haven't covered to our audience, and again, those that are watching the recording, you can't chat with us because the chat room is closed. This is a good time for our live audience to bring up any topics. But give me some practical advice now. We'll stay with you, John, because you're the big boss, if you don't mind. For the publishers and the hundreds who are going to be watching this recording and reading the write-up, who how do they need to modernize and the whole system? What do they do when they're feeling overwhelmed? The hardest thing is getting started. Do you agree? I,
I do agree. So we have a process that we take customers through, and it starts with the business outcomes, the why, the how, and the what. Right. So let's start with the why. What are you looking to achieve? Typically, for our customers, there are four whys. They're either looking to grow revenues, they're looking to streamline business process, they're looking to provide a better experience to their customers, or they want better metrics. Back to your point about if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. And start with the whys, and then drill into the hows. So if it's revenue growth, how am I going to grow the revenues? Is it I need to improve my sales team. I need to make them better at selling, and therefore I need the measures in place to work out, what's working for them. To your point, is it a closing problem or is it a pipeline generation problem? If I'm looking to cross sell, and this is a common problem in media publishing, particularly ones that have acquired brands have wanted to operate in silos, and they've not been great at cross-brand selling. And how do you build stronger relationships with cross-brand selling? So I would always start with the business problems. Forget the tech. As a tech vendor, I'd much rather customers worried less about the tech to start with and worried much more about the why. What are they trying to achieve and how are they going to do that? And we do through a workshop process with customers. Typically takes 3 to 4 hours, sometimes a day, but sort of challenging them on the questions, because I quite often meet a customer that says, what we want from a CRM platform is workflow. I'm like, you don't. It might be a feature that you need. What you probably want is more revenues and more profitability. Let's really start there and work our way back. So in terms of practical advice, if you're considering changing CRMs, I would absolutely start with a why first. Don't even look at the technology, right? Because all us technology vendors will tell you we've got the best features, the best functions. It's not about that. It's about what are you trying to achieve and then work out how you're going to do it. The technology is the last piece of the puzzle. Then you work out what bit of technology you need. And then just to talk about AI quickly, and then I'll shut up. But
no,
on
keep
the
going.
AI stuff, I think it is a real opportunity, so don't be shy of it. But you need to look at it in the same vein. What are you trying to achieve, and how does it create value? Don't just buy tech for tech's sake, right? How do you make AI really create value for your business? And for us, right now, I think the most practical thing you can do is look at what things you do in your business that you could automate or streamline with AI. Let's not try and do something you don't already do. Let's just give you the time back that you're spending doing manual stuff so you can spend more valuable time thinking about what else you can be doing.
There's the pull quote. I mean, that's it. Because that to me is not just AI. That's what tech does.
Exactly.
I mean, period. And you could say, Ken, to you, advice for publishers, what they should do, advice for publishers, what they shouldn't do,
Well,
based on your experience, especially now working in the CRM world.
yeah. So I think it's a couple things, and you guys sort of touched on it a minute ago, which is, at the end of the day, CRM, it does need to provide, the quote. You've got to have some things to measure so that leadership can, steer the ship, so to speak. But at the end of the day, what I see is that it needs to be a useful tool for the salespeople to make their job easier. Keyword being easier. So, what I do is, I reflected back just even 5 or 6 years, right? 5 or 6 years ago, I hold a meeting with somebody. It's on Zoom. Maybe there's a recording. There was no transcripting back in the early days. I just had my notepad right here next. I had to take a million notes. Then I had to digest them. I had to, put it in a doc. All of those things we've created, automations for. So, we've got email integrations, we've got scribing, we've got, all of, again, where the AI comes in and does some practical things. These are all things that used to cost me as a salesperson, a lot of the people out here listening to this, on the sales side, stuff that used to take us hours and hours and hours is now done for us in minutes and seconds. So everything needs to be about sort of building that practicality. And again, that's why, again, I reinforce the importance of being able to integrate with other applications is really, really key, because the CRM doesn't necessarily need to be all things to all people, because if you like a current system, then that's fine. Let's make it play, and and the salesperson doesn't have to learn a new tool. So I think that part of it is really important. And then I think the other side of, like, if I sort of get away from sales and maybe back into where you guys touched on, first party data, that's where having a really, really strong marketing partner is important. And what Workbooks has done through John has gone out and found like some really, really badass global partners to help us on the marketing automation side. And what I hear from publishers, that's insanely important. It's important for lead gen. It's important for audience development, audience segmentation. You've got to have somebody who can do that for you. I won't do a whole commercial on the companies that we've aligned with, but I can tell you the companies that we've gotten together with are global entities that have been in this space for decades. So I'll put our marketing automation side up against any of the billion-dollar CRMs any day of the week and twice on Tuesday. So yeah, if anybody wants to dive into those weeds with me, let's go. There's my email right there, ken.campbell@workbooks.com. And coming soon, dressed in Clemson gear at a conference near you.
But the final question, this is just the infants. John, let's assume we do this webinar in a year. It'll be mind-boggling. And so because you guys are one of the few CRMs that has integrated these tools, so it's constantly on improvement, right? I mean, your platform's going to be different in 3 months. Do you agree or
Yeah,
disagree?
yeah, it absolutely is. So I just want to pick up on a question Michael asked, which he said, do you think AI still needs to improve?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think the answer is it will improve, but honestly, it's pretty good now. And I would say in the last 6 months, it has got significantly better. And
Oh, yeah.
we've been using AI in our business now for a couple of years, but it is a very effective tool at some things, not at everything, but at some things. The challenge, I think, for everybody is how do you create competitive advantage in a world where the tools are available to everybody, and they are. And so I think more if your media publishing firms are going to need to invest some energy in understanding how they make their sales and marketing teams competitive in the marketplace, because those companies that don't won't have customers to sell to, right? Because the market's changing quick. So I think making sure that your sales and marketing tools and technology are leading edge is going to be a big part of organizations staying competitive.
Been an amazing journey. I really, uh, and again, I don't fear AI. It's just I'm asked that question all the time, and we're using it at EMP. We're very, very transparent about it. We have our we have our AI policy clearly posted. Whenever we use it, we mention it. But I'm going to be honest with you, John. I agree. 6 months ago, it was not as good as it is today for the tool. 'Cause we use a number of tools that help us pick certain subject lines that we know resonate better. We use tools editorially to help us make sure we're doing the proper tagging real time. We use tools in the sales side to make sure that we're doing the best content we can for advertisers like you. So again, and this is still the infancy. A year from now, we'll be looking back on this date going, wow, this is amazing. So if I can give my humble endorsement, work with a company that embraces AI. Not don't fear it, that embraces it, screens it for you, works it for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Because tech is not about being a nerd. Tech is about efficiency. Okay. And I think that is the pull quote number one. And the reason for our CRM, if I'm now on editorializing, just go back to Peter Drucker. You can't look at you got to have a number in order to improve. You can't measure it. There's nothing you can do. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much. Ken, there's your contact information. I'm sure you can set up an appointment. There's no charge, obviously, to get an evaluation.
Nope.
I mean, and you guys have been great. Thank you so much for this valuable content. Thank you to our audience, and thank you to the many who will be viewing this recording. I'm Mike Blinder. Stick around for other webinars. We appreciate your time. Ken and John, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.